Hello everyone, it's Jamarl Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Sorry it took so long. I had an idea for one video I was going to do, and I saw something else that caught my attention. So I'm going to do the second video that caught my attention because this was a story that Jesus Christ, months ago, like 6 months ago, more ago, when all of this first took place. And what I'm talking about is the United States sanctions. Donald Trump coming in, pulling the United States for reasons of his own and other neocons out of the Iran nuclear deal. Before I start the story, if you find yourself coming back to this channel often and you want to support the content, you can do so by sharing the videos, liking the videos, or if you're an Uber fan, you can support through Patreon. Even if you're not an Uber fan, you just want to support. Even $1 helps. That said, the channel has been remonetized. That's also good. And the second note, the Patron Appreciation Show is going to be this evening at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. That is going to hurt. Our time zone is different. And I've kept the same, tried to keep the same show times. More or less. That's failed sometimes, like yesterday where I kind of got narcoleptic at the last minute. But for most part, I've been able to do it. I don't know how this is going to look going in other parts, but we'll see. All right. Europe. We're going to hop across the pond. We're going to go to Europe. Just to give backstory. Donald Trump pulls the United States out of the Iran nuclear deal. He implements sanctions, and he implements another set of sanctions that are going to kick into place dealing with the energy markets on the 6th of November. The question really boiled down to, what is the rest of the world going to do? What is the rest of the world going to do? Donald Trump is like a child that took his ball and went home. Well, what are the rest of the people who are standing around the court going to do? Are you countries or not? Are you vassal states of the United States, or are you countries or not? Especially something like the European Union that fancies itself as this kind of power of sorts. Not power, but economic anyway. Not to mention there's a certain pride associated with being multiple nations, being talked down to and essentially set upon by one. What is Europe, China, Russia, and these other countries going to do? Well, Europe has come up with a plan. It's come up with a few plans, actually, some of which have better chance of succeeding than others, and some of which are, one is groundbreaking, potentially. The other one, they were having difficulty even getting it approval for it because it's kind of so over the top. Over the top is relative. I'm just saying it's distasteful. Let's say it that way. It leaves a bad taste in people's mouths. The one that left the bad taste in the mouth was directly paying companies, European companies in Tehran, in Iran. The reason that they wanted to do this was to kind of blunt the effect of the U.S. sanctions. Meaning, yes, the United States is kicking in sanctions, but we are doing this to blunt the effects of those sanctions. Now, understand why this is important. The whole point of Iran acceding to this deal, or you can say allowing this deal and signing on to this deal, was because it was relieving the sanctions. They were getting an economic benefit from following, you could say, certain edicts of world powers. That being, don't make nuclear weapons. Now, from Iran's standpoint, fine, we won't make the nuclear weapons. We weren't trying to make those nuclear weapons. I don't know if that's true or not. I think they would be crazy not to have been trying to create nuclear weapons. I think they would be crazy now to some degree not to be trying to recreate nuclear weapons, but that's me. That said, the economic benefits for these things were real. They were real. And Iran followed the rules. Now, that's not just Iran saying they followed the rules. That's the agencies that were inspecting Iran saying they're following the rules, and everybody else saying Iran is following the rules. Donald Trump, I'm going to take my ball. Oh, fuck home. Here's the catch. Regardless of what the European powers wanted, they're capitalistic societies. And because they're capitalistic societies, the intrusion of the government into the economic sphere, it's a touchy subject, let's say it that way. Fact is, regardless of what the European countries want, the big companies that are in Europe are going to do what is in their economic best interests. And if they believe they're not going to be able to sell to America, or they're going to be, let's say, what's the word I'm looking for? Not criticized, but penalized in some way, then it is in their economic benefit to not give two shits what their government wants and to pull out business from Iran. And that is, for all intents and purposes, what they've been doing. The European Union may be able to protect smaller companies, but when you get into like companies like Total, there's another French automaker, but I can't pronounce it. I think it's Peugeot or something to that effect. Can't touch it. Those companies are moving. That's the context to which this conversation is taking place. So I wanted to give a primer. So the paying thing, one idea that they were coming up with was paying Iran. That's not going to fly. The one that was fascinating, though, had to do with the euro being a global currency. That way they could buy things in oil, meaning the euro could be used for the oil instead of a petrodollar, a petro-euro. The article didn't necessarily say that they were trying to take the global currency, but it did say they wanted to be a global currency, almost a competing against the dollar itself. That is an amazing sea change. And if the dollar becomes no longer the reserve currency, oh my God. Look at Britain. Look at Britain. Britain the pound used to be the reserve currency. The moment that the pound was no longer the reserve currency, Britain could not afford its empire, and it crumbled. And they started letting those countries go. Kenya, the country I'm in, part of the British Empire. There's a monument that I'm going to go to either tomorrow or the day after, commemorating the no longer being a subject of Britain. No longer being a subject of Britain. So one competing currency. I think that's the one that's the most tectonic from the standpoint of a change. Like that's a sea change in regards to the way that we go about our affairs. And what it could mean is mind-blowing, especially if you live in the United States. There was one more. Oh, barter. There was a barter system. So it's something that they used to use, I think, in the old Soviet Union, where they would use goods and trade those goods for oil. And in doing this, it would bypass this idea of using the dollar. Oh, I didn't see it. I couldn't see it. It will bypass the thing of using the dollar. This is an interesting way of going about this. But I guess the point is, Europe is trying to find ways to essentially get around this thing of what the United States is putting up. Also, there's another catch to this. I've read articles saying stuff like, this is a master stroke by Donald Trump because there hasn't been a bump in oil prices, as if the only thing that you're looking at are oil prices. That's nonsense. Even from the standpoint of geopolitical politics, you've aligned yourself with terrorists, whether you want to talk about Israel or Saudi Arabia. One is an occupying power that essentially has an open-air ghetto, and the other one chops off heads, chops off arms, and crucifies. Are these the partners that you want? Let alone what's taking place in Syria. That is gross. The protection of terrorists by the United States of America. It's gross. Look, my point is this. It goes beyond just financial considerations. You've aligned yourself with people who are not necessarily the nicest on this planet. And in doing so, you've pushed everybody else together. Iran is going to get closer ties with China and Russia. That's the first point. Europe is literally ignoring you to the degree that they can ignore you and finding other ways to go about their affairs, talking about taking out the United States dollar as the world currency. This goes beyond financial considerations. And if you're playing chess, I think you need to be damn sure or clear that you're injuring yourself in the long term. You're finding yourself, they're finding you to be an unreasonable and unstable partner. And I got to be honest, as a fledgling power, The only thing you have left is your military. And I would imagine that the other countries around the world are getting a bit edgy, seeing as you're taking this kind of insane turn from the standpoint of politics. This is horrendous geopolitical politics. That's my only point. You've pushed the other countries together. You didn't break them. It becomes a point. It's called turn of the worm, where yes, as long as things are going relatively well, but the moment that you start trying to exert that influence, especially from the standpoint of a hard power way, they're going to find other options. That's what they're doing. They're finding other options. I'm putting the article at the bottom for you to read for yourself. It's fascinating. At least I think so, because I pay attention to European politics. Let's see. Who is this? And this is I had told you so. I had told you so. I'll try to make a tutorial on how to integrate OBS with Google Hangouts tonight. I'll tweet you the link. Oh, you can do that. Also, you can use display capture, window capture. If you use window captured, we never see your OBS in between swapping scenes. Oh, I see. Usually it's not an issue. Usually I have like multiple screens. So when I flip between the two, there's not an issue. Off topic. I was so disheartened by Kyle defending Jared Polis and defending not only his vote for the Bush tax cuts, but defending the Bush tax cuts. Because some taxes for the middle class people, even worse than falling out of a boat today. Oh, wow. That's, oh, I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry. You fell out of a boat. I'll have to check that video. If you can, send me the link. Please email me the link. I was so disheartened by Cal defending Jared Polis and defending not only his vote for the Bush tax cut, but defending the Bush tax cuts, because some tax cuts for the middle class people, even worse than falling out of the boat today. Yeah. There's always some that are giving back, but usually the majority of the bullworth go towards the top. Yeah, I feel you, man. I have to hear it. I have to hear it. Garden, we aren't going off the petrodollar. None of these alternative systems will replace, at least not anytime soon. Well, wait. I never said replace. I never said replace. What I said was compete. There's a difference. No, Jamal, as the United States loses reserve currency status, it is not a threat to the United States. In fact, quite the opposite, meaning it will be more difficult to cause economic terror and sanctions and trade. No, I know, but that's my point, Rod. From the standpoint of the people who are government and everything else, that would be a disaster. Like, your argument, I understand your argument. Your argument is, look, that's good for us because we don't have to, you know, we wouldn't be able to do this stuff out there. I suspect it's going to go further than you realize. I strongly suspect it's going to go further than you realize. It's not just the United States not able to enforce its will around the globe. That's one way to look at it, yes, but there are probably other consequences that go along with that. Britain's economy shrunk after that. Gardner, they're willing to do whatever length to crush any alternative to petrodollar. That's true. I agree with you on that. It won't be replaced by a similar system in China or anywhere ever. Well, China is trying to do a reserve currency with gold. They're trying to go back on the gold standard. Also, I said compete. I didn't say... and the reason they're doing this, though, is because of the United States' behavior now. I mean, whatever the United States do to try to ruthlessly crush it, I suspect is going to have the opposite effect at this point. In fact, this gets into this thing of micro militarism. This like the actions of a failing empire, like Chalmers Johnson. Rob has a good point. One might be able to exist for a period, but it would be dependent on the wider petrodollar. It would be kept on a tight leash. Look, two things. If the United States, if the dollar is no longer the reserve currency, I suspect there are going to be far greater consequences than what Rob is saying. This is going to go well beyond that. Two, I don't believe it's going to take place without consequences. I'll say it that way. And I mean consequences from the standpoint, I have a hard time believing the U.S. is going to allow it. At least not without some kind of fuckery taking place. So, All right, I will end this here. Both articles at the bottom, the New York Times one where the person is talking about this is an awesome thing that Trump is doing, despite the fact that these things are hitting Iran pretty hard. And second, or I should say the main video itself, or the main article, dealing with the European Union and its, oh, thank you, Balthazar, and its attempts at trying to stop this. Stop what they're doing from the standpoint of the Iran deal, or blunt the edges of the Iran deal. All right, guys. I'll leave that here. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, and you can always support it through Patreon. And Balthazar, as always, thank you, man. Thanks, guys.